Um, International Women's Day is a day, okay, let me start over. Okay. International Women's Day is a global day celebrating the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women. This day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. Significant activity is witnessed worldwide as groups come together to celebrate women's achievements or rally for women's equality. I'm really excited that you guys took some time to be here. In honor of this day, we've gathered women from our local communities to discuss our experiences as women in today's society, and exchange ideas about supporting women and promoting gender equality. So that's the basic definition of why we're here, you know, the formal definition of why we're here. And I feel like International Women's Day is a wonderful opportunity for us to celebrate each other, just to take a moment out of our busy days, out of all the things we juggle, out of all the logic that we have to balance in our days, and just say thank you to each other and uplift each other and just look each other in the face and say, you're doing a great job. Sometimes we need that. So thank you again for taking some time to be here. So we'd like to start with having you just introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, and let's start with Jessica.
Absolutely. I just wanted to thank you guys so much for allowing me to be part of this conversation. I'm very excited to kind of hear what everybody's thinking about and all of the wonderful things that makes us women. My name is Jessica Mulgarbo. I work at Wellspring Women's Center in Development and Communications. And basically what that means is I do fundraising and social media management, lots of different stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being with us, Jessica. I know that you work with your heart and soul in your community. I remember that. So thank you so much. Christy, please introduce yourself. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I don't know if I am of the caliber to be here, but I will try. I guess my background is finance. I've been with iHeartRadio for 25 years. I have 3 daughters, and I'm heavily involved in the National Charity League. So later in my life now, turning more towards my passion and my desire to work with that organization. As you know, as you get through life, you find that, you know, your job sometimes kind of like has highs and lows. And now I'm finding that like I am like constantly working on National Charity League and barely working on my job that actually pays me. So I'm kind of shifted. But I'm excited to be here and hear what everyone has to say. Again, with having 3 daughters and 2 in college, 1 in high school, definitely have a lot of experience with that.
Yeah, no, I admire you as a mother, and also the work that you do with the National Charity League is definitely a big deal. So you put a lot of time and effort into the community and work with other moms and uplift them. So thank you for everything you do, and thank you for taking the time to be here. You are certainly of the caliber of woman to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And Nneka, I'm so excited to have you here. Nneka and I have a professional relationship, but today I just knew that your voice would be so important. Congratulations on your citizenship. I mean, I don't know anyone that juggles as much as you do. So please introduce yourself. We can't hear you.
I am a citizen, first and foremost, as of Saturday.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
Yes, thank you. And yes, I know Patty professionally, but our relationship started, I guess it started professionally, but then quickly turned personal when she helped me get a very important loan just last year, actually. So my name is Nneka Jenkins, and I run a team of amazing agents and in real estate. So my husband and I help clients, in my eyes, we help clients see the potential and help build their generational wealth and increase their investment portfolio in whatever capacity. And what I love so much about this event that you guys are holding right now and allowing me to speak on it is I just, as I've gotten older, I've realized just how important it is for women to uplift women and how much that has catapulted my career in so many ways, and just having people around, having a village around that uplifts you and motivates you and encourages you, because so much of me was, living in a box and kind of back here, and it took other people encouraging me and reminding me that I'm great to do the things that I'm supposed to be doing. So I think that this whole thing is just super exciting for me, because all I want to do is pour back into other women the way I feel women have poured into me, and I didn't even know what they were doing. So I'm blessed to be here. So thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that was completely understated, because the women that you lead always feel so empowered, and I get that feedback from them. So I think you're an amazing leader, and can't wait to hear your feedback on these questions today. And Lisa, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Sure. Hello, my name is Lisa Agali from MTO Shalmak Sudi in Sacramento. I am a retired IT information technology professional. I worked in IT for over 20 years. Now I basically am home babysitting, playing with my 2 granddaughters. I have 2 daughters, and I help my husband manage our real estate investments. And I'm really excited to be here. This is my first International Women's Day, and I'm just excited to hear what everybody has to say. And I'm honored to be a part of this group and be in on this conversation today.
As we are honored to have you. So ladies, let's get started and get right into our questions. So, this question might seem a little basic, but it's not. And I'd love to hear exactly what your thoughts are. You've had some time to think about it. So starting with you, Jessica, what does International Women's Day mean to you?
Well, I think it's a day for unity, right? And a day to celebrate the innate power that women have when we come together and we have conversations like this, and the power that comes from that unified voice of people expecting better.
Great. I love that. I love the word empowered. It's one of my favorite words on earth. So yeah, thank you. That was beautiful. Nneka, what does International Women's Day mean to you? I mean, you breed a tribe of strong women. Tell us, what does it mean to you?
I get so passionate about this topic because for me, I feel like it means me remembering my 20-something-year-old self and how naive I was, and all the things I didn't know, and all the ways I was judging myself. And now being in my going into later 30s, we'll just say that, realizing that when I see women that are younger and that are doing this, that, or the other, instead of judging them, grabbing them by the hand and saying, hey, let's do this together, guiding them in whatever way. And I know that personally, when I was there, I was judging older women, right? What they were doing and all of this. And as I feel like I've gained wisdom, as I've, had 4 children, I've helped my husband raise two of my stepchildren, his older two daughters. So we have 6 children together. I feel like it's so easy to judge, but what we really need to do more of is like turning around and saying, hey, come alongside with me. Let me show you how I do it. And let's elevate you, because we all get to this point where we feel like, oh, if only I knew what I know now, right? In my 20s, how much greater would I be doing things? And I think we're all just going to do so much better if we continue to look back and help other people go in the fashion that we did. So that's what women empowerment, like she mentioned, but also International Women's Day means, is just remembering to help, get someone else on that pedestal, step down and let someone else get a time to shine, and help people feel confident in stepping into their glory and whatever they were meant to do in this life.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. The day, this holiday, this moment in time to reflect on how far we've come, and to give the grace that someone gave us, that we needed to give ourselves, to the women that we see that are coming along behind us. Yeah, that was a beautiful statement. Thank you so much, Nneka. Christy.
Well, I had to actually stop down and think about this, because I'll be honest. At first I was like, wait, what day is it?
I can't hear you.
Oh, you can't? Can
There
you
you
hear me
go.
now?
That's good. That's good.
So that before, like, you got to lean in further. I don't want to be like, hey. But anyway, I don't really think about this day a lot until like you sent this to me, and I was like, wait, this is an important day. However, I will be honest with everyone that I don't think there's as much perception around it and importance put on it as there should be. I even posed the question to my two college daughters, and they were like, I don't know, it's not that big of a day. And I'm like, well, it kind of is a big day. But I feel like in our society that so much the cheerleader mentality has to happen, as both of you were just saying, because really the best advancement for all of us is just what you said too, is women boosting each other up. And I think that not to sound like it doesn't come from others in our society, but I feel like it primarily comes from other women more so than anything. We are only the best at what we do based on the cheerleaders around us. And so unfortunately, I work for a large corporation, and in that corporation, they were sending out different, we just want to say thanks to all the women in the organization. But what I found was really interesting, and I was like, I'm going to bring this up on the call today because I work directly with at least 6 men in my industry, and not one of them said anything about International Women's Day today. It was only from the high up, that we got like the standard email. And I felt like that was really unfortunate that it's not as revered as an amazing day. I think that there needs to be more heightened awareness around it. And we need to share that with the younger generation and really, encourage them. And as you guys said, like, you learn things as you go through life. And those are the things that we need to be sharing with the younger generation now and empowering them. And so that they aren't that quiet little voice and, at the table not speaking up, that they actually acknowledge the traits they have and really take the chance to speak up and say, hey, if I don't speak up, then I'm never going to get to point A or point B. So anyways, I just thought I'd share the different points from the day to what it's meant in my world today.
Yeah, that's such a great example, because when we see International Women's Day, for some of us, it's just a reminder that there's so much more work to do. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And Lisa, what are your thoughts on what International Women's Day means to you?
Well, I mean, the formal meaning of it is basically a recognition for all women, of acknowledging, everybody's contributions that women have made, that they've made in society. But what it means to me personally is that, all of us, like men and women, should be helping and supporting the women in our everyday lives, just on a daily basis. Because, as all of you know, as women, we have many tasks to attend to on a daily basis, and we wear several different hats on like any given day. And basically, we need help. We need more help. We need to be supported. And as I can attest to, that doesn't change as you age. There's still lots of things that need to be done. And I just think all of us should strive to create and support and invest in programs, designed to help all women. Basically, the pandemic has affected like the entire world, really, but women have been more severely impacted by that than any other group, with the job losses and the childcare. So before the pandemic, women were at a disadvantage, but now it's gotten even worse. So I think anything we can do, each of us, to help, support other women and all other women, but especially the women that, we are in our daily life or that we interact with through business or personal, that we should do whatever we can to support them, because each of us is here because of a woman, because of the selfless act of a woman. So let's do everything in our power to honor and support that woman and every woman.
Amen. I love that. Thank you so much for such a powerful statement. And Christy, since you kind of touched on this, I'll start with you on the next question. You just mentioned that where you're at with iHeart Radio, you are working closely with 6 men that are, I guess, ranked with 6 other men. None of them mentioned the Women's Day. None of them acknowledged that you were right there with them, neck and neck with those guys. So can you think of another example, any gender specific challenges that you faced in life or your career that you overcame, something significant that you can share with us?
I would be blunt, but basically sexual harassment. I think I would gather, that each of us to a certain extent has experienced some level of that. And in raising my daughters, when they reach that age of 18 and going off into college and starting to get part-time jobs, you know, I had that conversation with them about that at some point in life, you will most likely encounter this, because as a woman working 30 plus years, there's been different layers that I've encountered, unfortunately. And it just, you know, it's up to each individual at what point you decide that that is not acceptable, and that you are brave enough to raise your hand or to report something. And, you know, it may just be a joke that someone's making constantly. It may be an actual physical touch. But unfortunately, in the 38 plus years I've worked, I have witnessed different layers of that. And I don't know if it's completely out of our society yet, because I think there's just so many little statements that continue to be made in the world that shouldn't be. But that's just one of those areas that as a woman, you have to understand and know that it's going to be part of your professional life, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like we could spend hours talking about experiences involving sexual harassment and how unfortunate that is for so many of us. Sometimes it's about being just kind of reduced to something that's, you know, an object, and never really quite honored for our skill set and for what we contribute. That's the way it feels. And it's such a hurtful thing. So thank you for being vulnerable and brave enough to share that portion of it. I appreciate that very much. And so I think I'll take it to Nneka next, because you are a force in a male dominated industry where I believe that women do it better. But you are really, you know, outperforming. Yeah, you are outperforming a lot of men, especially within your group. And so I'm positive that you have gender specific challenges that you face in your life and in your career. So any specific examples really stand out to you that you'd like to share?
Oh man, there's so many, but there's one in particular that I will never ever forget. Right when I first started in this industry, I was still an undercover agent. I was part-time working in tech and doing this on the side and not knowing what the heck I was doing. Long story short, I had just had my first biological child, my son, who is now almost 7. And long story short, I'm on the phone negotiating. I ended up getting the contract, but well, actually, no, I didn't get that contract, but I submitted an offer. And while I was talking to the listing agent, who is a man, he heard my son in the background crying. And he said to me, and of course, this isn't in a time of COVID, this is 6.5 or whatever years ago, right? And he said to me, are you kidding me? Get that kid under control and call me when you can actually have a conversation. Oh my God. I cried and I felt like I was like, I'm not cut out for this. I can't do this. I mean, all of the things that I have none of those feelings now. If my kid, I was breastfeeding on the Zoom last night with a brand new client who's never met me. So, you know, the changes that have happened with COVID, that's one thing, but also just the fact that I allowed him to make me feel like my womanhood, my maternal, everything maternal about me, that there was something wrong with my kid in the background crying, and didn't give me any grace in that moment. And I'm not saying that all men are like that, but it's just something to be said about having women around you and surrounding yourself around women that are going to remind you, are you kidding? Like, who cares about that guy? You're doing something that guy can never do, you know, raising a child the way only mothers can do, obviously, right? And I will never forget the way I felt, and that lasted for a while. And I feel like COVID gave everyone a reason to stop doing that, basically. No, they have a life in the background because we're all stuck at home. But why did it take a national pandemic for us to acknowledge that women that go back into the workforce in whatever shape or fashion, that it's okay, and to give them grace? And why didn't I give myself grace? So I think what that taught me is just understanding that not everyone is going to understand the way I've chose to do my business and grow the business with my husband, and, you know, how domesticated I might look to the next person, and really not caring, but I'm still human. So having the people around me that are also going to, you know, reinforce like, no, Nneka, you're doing just fine. And that's okay. And nursing on a Zoom call and that being okay. You know, I think that sticks out for me, and just what it means to be a woman, and not not hide what makes me a woman in my business every day. And frankly, if that were a client and they acted that way, they're not my client. They're not my they're not my people, right? And they can go off to someone else. But knowing that I've got a tribe around me and that people will value what I have to put out there has just been empowering. But it took me like 6.5 years to really own that and be okay with it.
Yeah, I think that's another really significant example of what women deal with, because we all, many of us are raising children in addition to our careers, and most, men don't understand what that juggle even feels like, because they get to leave it at home and come back to it when they're done with their job. So that's.
Can I add one more thing, Patty, to that? I think what's extremely powerful is when you do find the men that support you, get that. They're never going to understand fully, support you, get that, and choose to not see, choose to not kind of put you on the back burner, right? Like in whatever industry that you're in, those men that don't do the whole, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Get that kid under control, but also don't do the whole, oh, I know you've got kids, so you can't do that, right? Giving you an excuse beforehand and just treat you like everybody else, but also recognize and appreciate that you have, other things going on, raising a family. I think when you find those men that do that, I think that's critical for us too as women, because we also need their support so that, we can continue to do the things that we want to do. And I've been blessed enough. I feel like I have that in my husband. I feel like that I have that in my mentor / partner. And I think that that's critical. So we have to do a better job of communicating to them so that they can understand as best as they can, and then they can support us in their own way.
Right. I think that when your performance speaks for itself, then those accommodations are made for you. And that's you're emphasizing the reason why we need to have these conversations, to heighten their awareness, to make people more understanding and compassionate to what we have to juggle in order to be moms and have careers. And then just give us a little bit more of that grace. And you are really lucky to have found that in a partner and a husband. So definitely, may we all be so blessed.
I agree.
Also, because of your conversation that you just brought up, another thing that is really hard for women is you're constantly battling that, like, I really want to be successful and I really want to succeed at this career. And then you have this constant guilt about having your little baby at home or your your children, and you're like, okay, I just missed their little choir performance or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I know, there's a couple of us on, or a few of us on here that know what that feels like. And it's a really hard thing in our society. And you still have in our society, unfortunately, women who are the only stay-at-home moms who don't understand the moms that want to have a career. And then you have women who are hardcore career that don't understand women who want to stay home. Yeah. So that even creates a somewhat barrier between women in a whole, right? And that's just something that you experience through life as well. And it is hard. I mean, and you have a newborn baby and you totally get it. And all of us moms on here get it. And it's hard because you want to put in the 12-hour day and you want to be the superstar. And I've been there and I've done that. And I know what it's like. And it's really hard as women. And I don't know if, like we've said right now, like, I don't know how many men are really going to completely understand it. But I do know that even in my life experience, I have worked with quite a few men that are very family oriented. And so they do appreciate it. And then I've even seen where they're impressed when you talk about, like, when your kids are getting older and how your kids are becoming successful. And so then they even appreciate you more on a work level as well. So.
Yeah, excellent. I'm so glad you added that. That was perfect. And so, Jessica, you can add a little bit to this conversation here about any experiences that you've had, gender-specific challenges in your life and career. I know you are a very passionate lady, so I'm really excited to hear what you've had to overcome.
Well, when I was starting my first job right out of high school, I was working there for a couple of months, and I discovered that a guy who had started working there months and months and months after I started was making almost $1 more than me. And it was the same position, same hours, same everything. We even had shifts that coincided. And I wasn't mad at him, but I went and I talked to management because I don't believe that that's right. And their reasoning was that I could technically go on maternity leave and I needed to make up that cost in my pay. And to hear that as an 18-year-old, it was daunting. And so I basically had two choices. I could either sit and take that, or I could find other employment. And I put in my 2 weeks that day. So.
Good for
What better way-
you.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
better way to
Good
make
for you.
action? Yeah, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Now, how did that experience impact maybe your future negotiations for salary, or how you approached that conversation with future employers, how maybe you put your resume together? How did that change the way you did business moving forward from that?
Well, I think it just made me realize that, you know, if I was going to an employer who didn't value me, I would not value a conversation with them. That being said, I'm not going to, you know, be mean right out of the gate. I just would end whatever kind of relationship that came from either an application or something like that. Just because if they're going to waste my time and not value my time, I'm not going to go any further with the conversation.
Good. So it raised your own, you know, value, the way that you view yourself and how you come to the table, and as a result changes the way people communicate with you. So yeah, that's a beautiful example. We all kind of have to take those punches to get a little bit stronger out in the field. So I'll move on to the next question, and I'll start with you, Lisa. So do you have a female role model? And if you do, who is she, and why does she empower you? How does she inspire you?
Actually, my female role model is my mother, really. Just because my mother, when I think about a role model, I think about three things, basically three qualities: determination, persistence, and courage. And basically she checked off all those boxes. Basically, my mother had a horrible childhood, a terrible childhood. The type of experiences that she went through, you wouldn't wish on any child or an adult. And basically, she rose above it. She chose for herself and for her children, to rise above those, you know, limitations from childhood that were forced upon her. And she basically just lived according to her truth. And she modeled just internal goodness. She modeled internal goodness. And she just inspired me, empowered me, you know, to be the best person that I can under any circumstance. And that's why I chose her as my role model.
I love that. I don't know which one of us probably won't be thinking the same about our moms. I love that so much. Thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
Christy, who's your role model? Do you have one? And if so, how does she inspire you?
Well, you know, I don't have a role model. I, through my life, have definitely worked with or been personally related to individuals that have traits that I see those traits, or I'm like, wow, I want to emulate those traits, but I don't have anybody particular.
Come closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. I don't have anyone in particular. It's just mainly traits that I've worked with different individuals, and those traits, I like to emulate those traits. Or if I see someone who is, you know, at work, you know, they constantly put others before themselves. They do the right thing. They are in their position for respect. Those are the things that I like to model myself after, but I don't have anyone specific.
That makes sense. Inspired by many women for various reasons and picking up good things as you go. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So Nneka, do you have a female role model? Is there a woman that just you look at and she inspires you? And if so, how?
So I'm going to answer that twofold. The first way I'm going to answer it is, Jessica, I'm just meeting you for the first time today. And I not to judge, but you look younger. You're beautiful. You look younger. And I'm sorry, but I wish I was as strong as you are. I wish I was as strong as you are when I was in my 20s, because just hearing that story from you, I can name a few examples in the past few years alone in my 30s where I didn't react that way. I'm asking questions. I'm trying, why don't they understand? Why aren't they paying me as much, like in your example? And I just think that you need to coach some women or something, because that is what's missing, is us valuing ourselves enough to, no, I'm not going to ask you any questions. You didn't value me. I'm going to go somewhere else where someone values me before I have to tell them to. That's so powerful. So you are my role model for the week. I'll say that. But as far as
so much.
You're welcome. I mean every word of that, because when I heard that, I'm like, I still wish I had that kind of courage. For me, it would be my mom. I think for most of my life, I think, you know, as daughters, we judge our moms, right? They're not doing it right, and I would do it better. And, you know, we don't really understand all of the things that they do, right? And I think I spent a lot of my adolescence judging my mom, but the reason I say she's my role model, she broke her back for us. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but what I've learned even in the past few years is I love how much she is her own biggest fan. And I love how, you know, she doesn't have to have other people lift her up for her to be lifted, for her to have confidence in herself, for her to do what the heck she wants to do. And that's something I struggle with, because I'm constantly shaming myself. So I don't have to wait for someone else to shame me. I'm shaming myself enough for all of us. So I really value that in her. And she's, you know, it took her a while. I don't think she was always like that, but later in life, I think she just figured out, you know, I'm going to do what I want. I worked my tail off, and, you know, I raised these kids almost completely on her own, and she does whatever she wants and she's happy. And I think that's huge. And I struggle with that, but I think it's super important for us to just really be confident enough to do what we want with our lives, because it is short. And especially as mothers, not saying, you know, everyone's a mom, but just in general, as women, we're nurturers. So we tend to give more than we are receiving. And so if we're going to continue doing that, we need to pour into ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Me too.
For that. Yeah.
I just say really quick, I saw, just speaking to that, I'm constantly down on myself all the time, just like you're saying, and I have to, like, you know, my kids are always like, no, mom, you're great, blah, 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 you know, and everything. But then I saw this story about a 7-year-old woman who, you know, she was having a lot of different, not massive health issues, but slight health issues. And her daughter is a weight trainer. And so she was like, hey, you know, why don't you start trying to come to the gym? She's like this massive weight building body person at 70. She took it up at 70. And so it's just another form of women inspiring us, no matter what age they are and no matter what age we are. And just like you said, you know, Jessica's inspiring us by how she demanded respect at an age where, you know, most of us will look back at that. I mean, you know, back at when I was that young, I mean, I like I said, I had a situation where a man tried to kiss me at work and I was probably 19. And I did. I literally went back to my office and I packed up my stuff and I left. But it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And it's hard also when you're, you know, like you're a young individual and you need your paycheck. So I too, I like, you're inspiring me, just like the 70-year-old woman's inspiring me. So it doesn't matter what age or what you're doing. I feel like, again, it's women that encourage women to be better at what they do, more so than anyone else in our society.
Amen to that. And Jessica, spotlight back on you. Is there a woman that you look up to? Where do you draw this strength from? Who inspires you?
Well, I draw a lot of strength from my mom as well. You know, she kind of had a lot of difficult things that happened in her life. And I think the reason why that's so inspiring to me is because when you have adversity, you can choose to go into yourself and allow that to callous your heart or make you walk around in the world with a chip on your shoulder. And my mom did the opposite. She comes to everywhere with empathy and kindness and acceptance, no matter where you are. And I also have another person that I look up to a lot. It's a representative AOC, because she keeps people accountable and she understands that the truth is something that you sometimes have to fight for. And to do that with tact and emotion and logic all wrapped up into one concise person, so cool.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, there's, I think, nothing more beautiful than a woman who is convicted and not afraid to speak up and still do it in a graceful and feminine way, for sure. Yeah, I really believe that women have this unique ability to maintain their grace and feminism and still be extremely fierce and powerful without ever trying to be equal to men. Equal, that word doesn't sit well with me. We're a little better. Okay, so now, so the next question is really surrounded around one of the most beautiful quotes I think I've ever read. I love how it challenges us to think, and I love where it comes from. So Mae Jemison, she is the first Black woman to travel in space, and she once said, "Never limit yourself because of others' limited imagination, and never limit others because of your own limited imagination." And I'm just going to read that one more time. Never limit yourself because of others' limited imagination, and never limit others because of your own limited imagination. So why is this sentiment so important? How does it relate to International Women's Day? And Jessica, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to answer this question because it's a really big concept, right? So in my mind, this kind of tells me that if perspective is the way that you see the world and it is your reality, if you let others determine your perspective of yourself, you lose yourself completely. You're completely at the world around you's whim. And so when you do that to somebody else as well, you lose what they are trying to offer you. And so I think it's really important to draw into yourself and really understand that you get to shape your own reality.
Beautiful. Very well said. Thank you so much, Jessica. Lisa, let's go to you.
Okay. This basically to me speaks to the whole ideal of the whole theme of this International Women's Day this year. Basically, it's about, break the bias, break the bias and break the limitations, and don't each of us, we have a responsibility to call out, biased behavior directed towards anybody in society, directed towards ourselves or directed towards anybody else. So, based on any type of a perceived diversity or anything really. And we need to, each of us have that responsibility to correct ourselves, and when we start to have those feelings, towards a person, towards a race or an individual group of people, any type of, prejudice thoughts, biased thoughts, feelings, we need to stop and, say, hey, we need to correct that. We need to fix that. And we need to call it out when we see it anywhere in society. And we need to educate our children, basically, from a young age to stand up for themselves, to not be biased themselves, but to stand up for themselves, to be strong and to not accept it. Don't discriminate, against anyone in society. The world basically, would be a better place. If anybody, regardless of gender or anything else, everyone gets to be really what they want to be and not what society wants them to be.
Yeah, what you said reminds me of when people say, don't tell little girls what they can't do. You can't do that because you're a little girl. Or you can't do that because you're a girl. You can't say that. You can't wear that. You can't act like that. And you can't do that because you're a girl. And that's where those limiting thoughts are born.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it just goes back to you be you, which is one of the principles of our school. Basically, you be you, you do you, live according to your truth, without limitations. That's my take on that.
Yeah, and if we can stop imposing our own limitations on others, then we invite others to feel comfortable to figure out who they are so that they could just express that and let that essence inside of them grow. So beautiful. Thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
Christy, what does this quote mean to you? How is it relevant to International Women's Day?
Well, I totally agree that we often put perceptions on ourselves and on others. And I found myself throughout my career doing that more than once, and then actually doing a mental check. Even in interviews, I would walk into an interview and just the person's looks, I would start to perceive my own perception of what that person's going to be like. And I almost would already start shutting down as far as like interviewing them. And I've told myself, no, you're not going to. And I've actually ended up hiring some great team members because I did the mental check at the door and said, no, don't assume just because of the way someone is or the way they look, or maybe they were possibly late, or et cetera. But we do that. It's hard. I mean, I'll be honest right now, like it is hard in life. You do grow up with the way our society is, and even more so now, which scares me for our children because of the social outlets and media. It worries me because I think that it's even more heightened now than when, back in my day of being raised. And so we have to be extra cautious with that. And so I'm constantly trying to foster that, even with the National Charity League. And like, a lot of times I'll see these girls that are young and, there's so many A personalities in this organization, and they all want to speak up, and they all want to be president, they want to be vice president, they want to be treasurer of their class. And you have to be that person in the room for the one who may not be speaking up for themselves. And I've done this more than once, where I've seen somebody show different traits and they don't do it in front of a lot of others, but they'll do it, maybe on a handwritten note or on something they presented. And I'll pull them aside when it's time for elections and say, hey, have you ever thought like you would be amazing at this? And I've had moms call me and thank me because their daughters have come home so excited that they never thought about even fulfilling that type of role in the organization until I approached them. So I think we all have to stop down and do those little things. And even back to the limitedness, like even in myself and recently in this organization, I was like, oh, I'll do that same role that I've been doing for the last 3 years. And then blindfolded me, like everyone voted me to be president. And I was like, whoa, no, not me, no. Like, I'm not of that caliber, like I said, when I even got on the call. And then I kind of did a check and I said, wait a second, I can totally do this. I'm passionate about this. And that is the one and the most thing that I will say even more so to you, Jessica. And it sounds like you have found the thing that you're passionate about. And I think that is the biggest thing, is when you find that thing that you're passionate about, you can do amazing things with it. And there's no limits because you love it and you just want to succeed at it and watch that organization or that individual you're helping succeed as well.
Amen. Yes. Yes. My favorite takeaway from that was not to be afraid to see something beautiful in another woman or another little girl and let her know, just like you did, Nneka, on this call. And just like you just highlighted, Christy, don't be afraid to speak up and let them know, because they might have one of those limiting beliefs circling around and you can just completely dissolve it in that moment. It just sometimes takes one person, one beautiful comment, one exchange, one moment to change something for a young lady or a woman or a little girl. So Nneka, tell us, what does this mean to you? Never limit yourself because of others' limited imagination, and never limit others because of your limited imagination. Tell me, how does this resonate with you, and how does it relate to International Women's Day?
Yeah, I think everyone touched on it with the limiting beliefs. That's huge. But I think once I had enough self-awareness to recognize that I innately am not a dreamer. I mean, we're all dreamers, but I just know that I tend to kind of stay closed in and limit myself. So if I'm doing that to myself, I'm doing that to others. So the biggest thing for me is recognizing that I do that. And then when I hear other women dream and make grand statements of what they're going to do or what they want to do, I have to stop myself from limiting them, like making comments like, well, are you sure? Well, because those are all my fears, right? So I think as I got good at recognizing that that's what is comfortable for me to, like, okay, well, let's just limit it. Let's just stay here, because then, I'm very ambitious on one hand, but then I'm very scared on the other hand. So when I recognize that in other women, I force myself to uplift them and to encourage them and to follow up with them. How can I help? Yep, your dream is not too big. How are we going to tackle that? because at the end of the day, that's all we need. We just need people to buy in on it, to believe in us, unless we're Kanye West and we really don't need anyone to buy in, but most of us do. Like I literally, you know, say what you want about Kanye West, but his confidence is on another level, and I wish I had half of it. So I think that's what it means to me, is just remembering that, you know, me judging and my syntax around my response to another woman about their dream can kill them. Like we need to be, what does the Bible say? Like we need to breathe life into people, right? We need to breathe life into their dream and breathe encouragement into their dream. I think that's so critical.
Yeah, we tend to look at life and what's possible based on our own experiences, and then we impose that on other people. And I think we need to even forget our own experiences and break through the barriers we've had ourselves and just realize that there's so much more to accomplish. And in doing so, it's kind of like, it reminds me of this thing where I heard once, where you don't dim your light, because if you dim your light, then someone else won't know that they have a light within them that can shine. So if you dim your light and you make yourself small to make someone else feel bigger, they won't know that they have a light. So you have to shine, and you can't be afraid to do that. So that's beautiful. Thank you, ladies, so much for sharing. I think that these roundtable conversations are so valuable because we never take the time to just sit and think about these things. And being present with these thoughts is going to help us go out into the world and just try to make that difference. Because that difference is made with one person at a time, one conversation at a time, one exchange at a time. We certainly can't change the world overnight. So to wrap up, I'd love to just take your final thoughts and reflections from the call and the conversation that we're having. And I'll go ahead and start with you, Lisa. Tell us, we've been preparing for this, and here we are having the conversation. Are there any thoughts that are jumping out in your heart that you'd like to share?
I really just appreciate everyone's, input and their perspective. It just really opens my eyes just to hear from these the different women, and younger, a little bit middle age. I'm older, just what everybody's gone through and what their take is on everything. And it really, it's eye-opening for me. A nice experience for me. And basically we all need to think, that we can't really do anything or change our past. We can't do anything about our past, but we can help someone else in the future so they don't have to go through what we went through. So
that's wisdom. Yes, ma'am. And Christy, so any thoughts or reflections, or just anything standing out in your heart from just participating in the conversation?
Right, and I too resonate the same thing that Lisa just said. Like, I'm so inspired by the different individuals on the call, and I just really think that, going back to all of what we've said, is it's just being there for each other, right? And making sure that you're constantly building up that other person, and you're respecting people. And it's, one of my best friends and I used to joke about this. We'd be like, you know what? We have to go to church on Sunday because whatever he tells us will at least stay with us, and will be really super sweet to everybody, and at least until Wednesday. And then through Friday, we might be ugly, but then we'll be back there on Sunday. So it's kind of like, you need to have these conversations to kind of put you back in perspective and give you that, like you said, the light, and just kind of build you back up again. And it's this little conversation is even inspiring.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. That was such a great example. You hear a beautiful message, you get pumped up, and that light fizzles out. You got to keep feeding.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to
keep back to the light.
Yes. Beautiful. Okay. And Jessica, anything standing out? Any reflections?
Well, so much is standing out to me, but I think the points that I'd like to touch on is I really like the idea of removing the limitations that you place on yourself, because I feel like we can be our own worst enemies sometimes, and we can hold ourselves back from so much because we've always been taught as women that we can't do this, we can't do that. All of these limitations that other people give us, we hold on to those. And so I think one of the biggest things that I've taken away from this conversation is that uplifting each other and kind of undoing some of that is so instrumental in our success. And I think women uplifting women, it's not just, you know, somebody uplifting someone else. It's actually you quieting those voices that, you know, happen sometimes that hold us back from doing what we need to do.
So beautiful, Jessica. You're so eloquent. Yes. Yeah. The more we trust ourselves, the quieter those voices become. Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Nneka, I'd love to end this question with you to share something meaningful or valuable that you're taking away from this. I know that you are a dynamic leader in your daily life, and maybe something stood out that you can share with the women that you lead. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
I keep doing that. Sorry about that. The first thing I would say is I'm super inspired and just reminded that, you know, as much as we like to sometimes say you know, what is it? I don't know. Is it Generation Z? I don't even know anymore what the generation names and all that are, but, you know, with COVID and all of that, the younger people coming out, like the people graduating during COVID and all that. And sometimes there's some negative talk around them. I think just listening to Jessica, I'm inspired to remember that there is still hope for the younger generation. And I'm still kind of part of, I'd like to think I'm part of a little bit of that younger generation, but I'm inspired to know that, you know, we are still encouraging each other. I think one thing that I know when I'm scrolling mindlessly on Instagram is if I ever have a feeling of jealousy or a feeling of envy, I try to check myself on that and purposely over comment. Like I will go on that person's page and encourage them. Because if I'm feeling that, that's coming from a place within me, a place of lack, right? So I then try to build that person up even more because like it's fleeting, right? It lasts for a few moments, but you don't know what that person's dealing with. You don't know, you know, it might be a beautiful picture and it looks like their life is amazing, but depression is real and it's so rampant right now, especially with COVID, right? That we still need to uplift those people that look like they have it all together. And then you touched on kind of my team. One thing that one member in particular, her name is Laura, I'm going to put her on blast, but one thing that I've been really thinking about lately that is kind of a big thing for me, I think one thing that we as women have is our vulnerability, right? Our sexuality, sorry to say it, right? And so sometimes, you know, there's some women that sometimes lead with that, and maybe that's not the way to do it. But as other women, and I'm not saying Laura does this, I'll tie it all in together, but sometimes as women, we see that and we judge that, right? And I feel like if we can, you know, stop judging that and really just still encourage women that they don't feel like they have anything else to offer and they lead with that, I think that it starts a conversation of like, we don't have to shame that part of us, right? So for example, sometimes when I'm thinking about what I wear to a meeting, it's different than what I used to think I should wear to meetings 6 years ago. But it's because I'm more confident now and I've honed my craft and I've created a business around it. So I feel like it's okay to be that normal person that leads with femininity. And I think so much of us, we shame women for leading with femininity, and that is our power. That like Patty, I've never really said this to you, but you are so gorgeous. And I always see you on Instagram. And just when I see you, I feel like you lead with that softness about you. You lead with that femininity. And sometimes as women, we try to like take that off and just look real serious and like think that that's what it has to be. And no, that's not our superpower. I think we can still bring some of that out and just do it tastefully. And one person that's part of my team that I feel like does that really well is Laura. And I think she's younger, but she's definitely matured in the couple years we've worked together. But she's taught me, I think she thinks that I've taught her a bunch of stuff, but she's taught me a bunch of stuff, and just, you know, being comfortable in who I am and in my skin, and not closing that off and thinking that, you know, that's a distraction. No, it's what attracts people to us.
Yeah, I think those are really powerful examples, because in this conversation, we're talking about inequalities that exist with women in the workplace, in the world, and so on. And I really believe with all my heart and soul that we should not have to compromise our femininity in this search to become equal. We're looking for equality, right? But what do we really mean by that? Do I want to be seen as a man? No, I don't want to be seen as a man. I'm a woman. I love that I like to cook, and I'm not just thinking about transactions every hour of the day. I love that I like to nurture a child. I love that I like love. I love that I like poetry. I like poetry more more than crunching numbers. So I think women should never have to compromise their femininity in this pursuit of equality. And then we have to sometimes redefine what this equality means. I think we're just looking to have a voice, looking to amplify our voices. And in order to, I think the main takeaway that I'm having from this conversation is that when we can unify like this, there's 6 of us on here. We can come together, we uplifted each other in a positive way. We believe in unity. And if we can take that from this conversation out into our communities and let that spill over into other communities and so on and so forth, that unity will give us the power to amplify our voices and make a significant change in society and hopefully in the world. So yeah, thank you guys so much for making the time and for such powerful contributions to this conversation. I'm so inspired. I was already inspired by you guys before we did this, and coming together to have this conversation. I'm just so grateful to have spent this time with you guys. Thank you for the time you gave. And again, for the conversation that I know I'll carry with me at least until Wednesday, right, Christy? I think that about does it, Golzar. Right on time.
Thank you. Thank you for closing the discussion so beautifully. Just a couple last things.